Yep. Okay, good evening. Let's call this meeting to order. Good evening.
Good evening.
Quite a year. So before we start, we have two guests, John Matthews and
Rosemary Rosen?
Ruth Ray.
Rosen.
Ro. Okay.
Kennedy.
Cameron. John had sent me a couple of emails. He had some questions for the finance committee.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Come set the table. Either any place you want to be is fine.
Okay. I'll just bring this up. A real simple, basic thing. When the town budget comes to you, what do you do? What's your role with it? What do you try to interpret? Or what do you do with it?
By the bylaws of the town administrator is responsible for putting together a balanced budget. And after he puts together a balanced budget, he then turns that over to the finance committee. And by the bylaws of the town, it's the finance committee that determines what the final budget is to go to the voters at the town meeting. So it's the finance committee's budget that goes to town meeting. But the town administrator does all the background work, meeting with the departments, collecting information from the independently elected officials who don't report to the town administrator and everything, but it has knowledge of what they're doing and how they're doing it, whether they're looking for increases. So and also has the income side under him, so he knows what income we need. So that's a big change, which I've always welcomed. It's a big change from years ago. The finance committee has always been responsible for the budget, but the finance committee was responsible for meeting with all the town departments and listening to them and listening to their requests for budget. And that's a long time consuming project. So Bob was the town administrator before we had a town administrator. And he used to do all of that with the departments too, because they reported to the select board with Bob. And so there was a lot of interview processing. The end result wasn't anything different from what we get by having somebody who really knows the day-to-day workings of the department well and can talk to the department heads well because they report to them, except for the elected officials. So I for one really welcome that as a change. And then the way the process works now is that when we're handed the draft budget by the town administrator, which this year didn't really come until March or April because of all the problems that they had with the assistant town administrators or with intermediate town administrators. And so it was much later than usual. Usually the budget process is supposed to start end of November. And request for budget goes out then in January, February. The first draft budget, which is a balanced budget, is usually done by the town.
The draft budget that you get, right? Is it like an executive summary?
No, it's what I gave out to you. No, I'm sorry. It's what you didn't get a copy. What we have is there's a packet of pages about that thick. And it contains
Actually, a little more than that.
and it contains for all the town departments and all the other elected official departments a line item budget, and it has and so we see that it gives us that as a pack of paper. The other change that instituted some of the years ago is that after we get the very first thing is that Bob and I go and talk with the town administrator. And we go through with the town administrator everything that's in all the budgets. Any question, we've looked at it, we have questions, and he would have some explanations for things. But that meeting typically is a 2 to 3 hour meeting that we have with the town administrator. And then after that's done, then we come back and we have the first finance committee meeting on the budget. Finance committee has been given a copy of the budget, but what that does is that then stops the finance committee from having to hold a long meeting where everybody's looking at the budget and asking individual questions, because mostly after we take the finance committee through the conversations we've had with the town administrator, most of the questions are answered, because we ask a lot of questions on administrator. So most of what people will have will be answered, and if they have additional questions, sometimes we will know from the conversations that we've had with the town
What kind
administrator.
of typical questions do you ask the town when you review it and you talk about it and say, oh, let's write this down? So you go back to the one who put the budget together and you ask them these questions. What typical questions are they?
Changes, plus
So-
and minus, big
so-
changes, plus and minus.
Okay, so you have on your draft budget that you look at, you have past year, how far back do you go back to compare? Oh, look at this year. Last year it was this, the previous year was this. Why decrease, why an increase?
Yeah, we got the budget from last year, and we're interested in knowing what's going on that causes either a big increase or a big decrease in line item budgets. And then typically the thing that happens is that, for example, police department has to buy new weapons every once in a while. So you'll see a big increase in weapons line. We have to check if it's the regular increase periodical. The assessor's office is another one. They have every once in a while, every 6 years or so, usually have a massive software. They have, I know that you will handle this. They're brilliant. So those things that happen periodically are included in the regular budget. And when we see that, we want to make sure that it's what we think it might be, or if not, what the explanation is. Let's see if anybody's trying to increase the scope of what the department does. Yeah, the items, there are a number of items that used to be included in the budget that are now separated out and done in the warrant article instead. And some of the big ones there is that we got to the point where every year we were buying a new police vehicle. And it sort of didn't make sense to have it in the police budget. So we moved it out into the warrant articles as just another big capital item that's done, and made that whole process go a lot smoother. We don't put purchases of dump trucks and things like that in the regular budget. Because they're not every year that they happen for the same thing. And so those go into the warrant article, are done in the warrant article. And that's why I mentioned to someone who wants to come in and ask, what's the budget of Granby? Well, the information used to be online. I think maybe it still is online someplace like everything else.
So they usually have that online.
Well, yeah, what you have to look for there is the booklet that's handed out at town meeting. As a booklet that's handed out at town meeting has, I think the warrant articles are listed.
Yeah.
Warrant articles are listed at the beginning. And then the budget that's going to go to the town for vote is listed there. So the best thing to have is that, because that gives you for any given year, most all the pieces of the budget. It doesn't give them in detail, it doesn't give a line item budget, but it gives a lot of detail. Then, however, you really have to look at a couple other things too. You have to look at the minutes of the town meetings, because sometimes the articles as they're presented are changed. And if they're changed, then you won't have the correct information. You'll have what was presented at the town, but you won't have the information about what was actually voted on. So you need the minutes of the town meeting. And then the other thing is that you need the warrant articles for any special town meetings we have. Because in special town meetings, there is very often monetary expenditures, particularly in the springtime. We used to have enough free cash to be able to do this with ease. Springtime was a good time to put in large capital expenditures. And So those you won't know about by reading the town meeting booklet. You have to go back and look at the other meetings where money can be allocated at those meetings. And then you need what was presented at the town meeting. Then you needed the minutes of those special town meetings, because then you had to find out whether what was actually voted in is the same as what was presented, or whether it was amended in the meeting.
One final question.
Sure.
I've been attending the town meetings since I've been here for 9-10 years. The last 3 or 4 years, the Finance Committee has spoken at the town meetings, the annual meeting, and has given us warnings. 3 years ago, you mentioned that the town of Granby was spending like a big city, and things that we couldn't afford. Now, last year, he mentioned that the thing is coming together very soon, where I read here, either cuts or there have to be a tax increase. That was last year.
That was last year.
And it was, to me, it was a warning, an alert. But my sense is that before the South Hadley disaster, my sense is that people don't care. When I talk to them about the town, they never mention, we're spending like a drunken sailor. The Finance Committee came at the last 2 or 3 meetings giving us warnings. People don't talk about that. So, John, you're a bright man, and I listen to you all the time. I think you made one mistake in those 10 years, but all the other times I agree with you. Why aren't they listening? Is it because you're not hitting them with data, information? Because you're giving us a summary of your interpretations of the budget and our spending patterns. Does that concern you that people aren't listening?
Well, I think it's a natural tendency of almost all human beings to hold off, wait and see. And so that we've been cautious a little bit in the way we present things, because, a few years back, we could see what was developing through the trends. But we couldn't, you can't use that as a way to alarm people, because trends usually are not enough for people. They don't understand that. And what happens is that when you have a trend, as the trend gets closer and closer, which I think is a full point, suddenly some people will start noticing it. But still, I think particularly it's hard for most elected officials to act on that, because the answer, as we basically said last year, is you're either going to have to raise taxes or else somebody's going to get hurt. Some departments are going to get hurt. Some operations are going to get hurt. Some services people have been used to are going to get hurt. And I don't know any elected official that wants to do either of those two things until it's absolutely necessary. But the other thing that happened last year is that we had really kind of a sudden disaster with this huge increase in health insurance premiums. And that caught our attention. It caught everybody's attention. And so some conversations finally started. Now, not sure that they started around what we need to do, whether we should be looking at the same services we have now and planning on tax increases, or whether we plan on cutting back on services. But next year it could be even worse. There are two big things which have happened over the last. Well, there's one big thing that's happened over the last 10 years that affects everybody, and that's the trash collection costs. We had when we no longer had the landfill moved to curbside collection, town passed a roughly $300,000 override to be able to pay for that. And $300,000 a year was roughly the cost for the first 3 years because of the initial contract. But then in successive contracts, there's been escalation, and we're now up to $600,000 a year. And if you just think back to the 10 years ago, everything was running along okay, and then we suddenly had this big nut of trash collection money. And we passed an override to take care of that, but the override doesn't keep up with the increases in the contract. It doesn't take it from 300,000 to 600,000. That to me is an example of one of the major things that the town would be looking at for a tax increase that matches up with what that trash collection increase is. But the other things of what you do about the operations, that's a whole different issue. And the schools are the biggest one on those. The schools, we passed an override of $300,000 for the schools quite a few years ago. And we also have something which is fairly unique to Granby. There are only a half a dozen or so cities, towns in the Commonwealth that have this problem, is that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whenever the new school system came in, the state, new prerogatives, they developed a system of school districts and school systems, towns have to be given a certain amount of money. Townships in some, state chips in some you get from free choice for students, there's all that. But they set a minimum that you had to spend on the schools. Well, the town was allowed to offset what contributions they made by the services in kind that they do for the schools. And that's such thing as they do the payroll taxes. They do the health insurance for the schools personnel. Their legal services, some legal services are right. There's plowing. There's money that the state charges for charter schools and for kids going to other schools. So all that sort of stuff runs through the town's books, so the town gets to subtract those things from what it is that we're otherwise charged for. Will it contribute to the schools? Those are in-kind expenses. There's a big one though. Is retired teachers' health care. And the first year that this was done, when Granby sent in its list of things it had, the accountant at the time left out retired teachers' health insurance. And so ever since then, unlike the other towns, we've been required to add them. So it's basically as if the required minimum has increased by, it's now up to $600,000 that we spent on retired teachers' health insurance. So that's something that very few other towns get, is that extra amount of money. So with that, right, for example, for this coming year, the schools are asking for the required minimum plus that $600,000 that we have to pay, plus they initially asks, well, it wound up they were asking for an additional 700,000,
Yeah, I read that.
890,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And they've got problems. One of the biggest problems is that the cost for special education has skyrocketed, and the state doesn't really pay for all of that. Upcoming is another big problem. We have more kids going to technical schools than we used to, and that's a big. So it doesn't affect them directly, except that it takes the kids out of the school system. So it's less income that kids directly. I think next year we've got.
Okay, one more question, really easy. The school department budget, you don't get into that like you do with the town budget, correct?
Well,
You don't have to view their departments and get the information on them.
no, we don't do any of that, and the reason is that because the state sets a minimum, there are years and years the school department came in at the required minimum plus the extra bump from the retired teachers' health insurance, and they could do their budget with that.
Right.
And so there was no point
Right.
in us going through.
The state's telling us to give them money and.
Yeah, they're required to give it, and what they spend on, we were going to question what it was they spent it on. But now, since then, when they ask for more money, theoretically, this has never really been pushed, but it's never really been argued about. theoretically, the finance committee under the bylaws has the right to ask any questions they want on finances. And presumably it applies to the schools too. And for years and years and years, the schools refused to send us a line item budget. They just refused. They would send us a line item budget. And as long as we were at the minimum close to, we said, okay, but when things got a little dicey, we started asking at least some questions about specific sorts of things. So we got more information. We are not automatically given a line item budget. But if we want to know some things, we can basically go and ask. So it's a complicated process. And also, to keep in mind is that from everybody's point of view, including finance committee and select board, things have been going along okay. I mean, the system basically worked. The schools were pretty good at holding their budget down as much as they thought they could and keep up with their at least level offerings. But what's happened now in the last year, for this fiscal year and for next fiscal year, is that we're breaking through too many things, and we can afford. We were able to do a budget for next year without requiring an override, but and without really slicing through some departments. I don't know if that's going to last more than next year or one more year after that. It's very, very dicey.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate it. Your time.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, bro, come on, welcome.
Is it all right if I sit here?
Yep, yes.
You described all the places where the budget is impacted. The initial budget gets passed, the warrants, the minutes. Is it anywhere that all of that is brought together so that there is one document that reflects the total budget?
We usually have two annual town meetings. We have an early town meeting, usually it's coming up second Monday in May. At that meeting, the only things that are discussed, there's a lot of money things that are discussed, but it's all from the warrant articles that the select board had. And we're not directly involved in the warrant articles. We're supposed to be given and are usually given a copy of them right before they go to the select board, so we can comment if we want. Before they are at their meeting, before they have the meeting. And we're actually required by the bylaws to comment to the town on anything that requires any money. So at the town meetings, if we have commented publicly, we have to comment. That makes sense. So, but at that, so that's the first of the town meetings. The second town meeting is the actual budget. Now, again, a lot of the budget has already been passed. This has been passed, the first town meeting, the warrant. But for the second town meeting, there's a booklet that's handed out. It's usually a thin booklet. And in that booklet, all the warrant articles listed and all of the rest of the budget.
So everything is in.
Yeah, so I kind of know what she's talking about. So we used to do, like, it was always presented. In the past few years, it hasn't. So we used to get a synopsis of all the departments with the total and showing the balance. It wasn't broken out in detail like we see it, but it had, like, it would show.
Just, I mean, it makes sense that somewhere there should be a document which has all of the ways in which the town can spend money.
Well, that's what the combination of the checks.
The two meetings.
Warrant article, yeah, the two meetings, the warrant article, and then what we call the rest of the budget.
So what the, Chris Martin, the acting, whatever his title is, I'm not sure, presented, as the 27 budget, he presented something at a
when he's
select
finished-
board meeting.
Yeah, when he's finished with his balanced budget, he has to create a balanced budget.
Right, and he said, this is a balanced budget.
He shows that to the select board.
And why is that? I mean, that doesn't reflect,
That reflects everything.
okay,
Yeah, it reflects all the things that are going to be in the warrant articles, plus the items that are the actual budget.
so that is everything. And that has come through you already or not yet?
Well, I
mean, as a big state it has, but it had to be time to be presented to the selectmen, really to them before it gets to us.
Okay, it was like preliminary.
It's the balanced budget that he's required by law, by laws to put together. Chris reports to the board of selectmen.
Right,
Town administrator.
Right.
And so, basically, he's an employee, and so he shows them what he's got for the balanced budget. And then, he sends a copy to us, on our budget sheet. And now, when the budget sheet comes out, we see on the budget sheet that, there are all of the town departments and all the departments for the elected officials.
it's in there.
The exception of fire department, ambulance department, program. There's that for some sort
And
of.
this-
But we see everything on the budget, so we can kind of figure out what's gonna get, most of what's gonna get presented as warrant article, because they're not any place else on the
For
sheet.
the annual presentation.
For the first of the two town meetings. And so,
Do you
and
have
then-
an opportunity to do anything with that, to?
Well, we see that we're oftentimes given a copy of the both warrant articles about the same time or just a few days before they're given to the select board.
I see.
So we can see that. And again, it's because by law, we have to comment on it at some point.
I see.
But we have no, strong say in what they are because they're not part of the budget. They're part of the warrant articles. So the budget is not what people think of as the budget. The budget people think of as all the money we spend. That's not the budget. All the money we spend is a combination of the budget and what we spend in the warrant articles.
So the budget would be more like operations of
Right.
the town
I see.
departments. The warrant articles are those
Specific
additional,
things, right?
correct,
A lot of
like
capital
if,
items.
But
yes.
somewhere there must be a tally of the operations budget and all of the warrants.
So the
And-
warrants would be totaled up individually. In the booklet, each year shows like all the revenue that comes in. And then all the,
So when I looked at that,
mhm.
the green book, what I have is from June of 25,
Mhm.
and that's everything
So
from,
that would be,
from that fiscal year.
Do you have the copy of that?
yeah, it's this one. So you're getting a projection of 26.
There's
Is
there's a problem with,
The only one I have is this one, which is dated June, which was.
It was
reviewed
June
for the
2025.
budget.
annual town meeting we had, which
Yeah.
set the budget for this fiscal year.
Correct.
Yes, that's right. for
Yeah.
this
Fiscal year 26.
Right.
Yeah.
Ending,
June.
Yep.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, the fiscal year goes from July 1st
right.
to June 30th.
I understand, but the one that I got from the town clerk, I thought was ending June 25.
Now, it says the town, please bring this report to the annual town meeting Monday, June 9th, 2025 at 7 PM.
2025.
2025.
That's for the 26 fiscal year. Take a look at the wording on there.
Right, this is the one I have.
Yes.
That's not for 2025, that's for
That's for fiscal year
2026.
26. We have
Oh,
to,
that was the, for the
Yes.
future.
so right now, when we go to town meeting, we're approving the budget for FY 27.
Seven, right?
Yes.
That's
Oh my
what,
God.
that's what Chris Martin presented as a balanced budget.
Correct.
And to that will be added warrants that are for other specific.
Correct.
Oh,
No, in the book,
what he would have presented to them would have been everything,
Everything.
because they have to approve all the warrant articles.
Is there more that gets added at the two meetings at the select?
no.
No,
Yes.
The warrant has been
No,
posted.
there isn't.
There's
but-
dollar amounts for every article with the exception of what we call a budget, which is what.
warrants, yes, I
Yeah.
saw that, okay, all right.
That's for the first
I
meeting.
apologize.
No, that's all right. That's for the first, people are watching this, a lot of people don't understand all of this. It's like-
Okay, I got it.
The warrant articles contain monetary figures for fun stuff that's gonna get.
And they are in addition to the operations budget, which
And then-
is the
and then
balanced
The
budget.
thing that's called the thing that's called the budget are the pages that look like this.
Right,
That's for each of the operating
Right.
departments. It has,
okay. So to that, you would add the warrant articles if you wanted to know what the.
They're included in the booklet.
Yes, I got it.
This is what we get. And,
Oh, yes, so you have,
and this right-hand column is what is the projection for this year's finances of the town without trying to,
which is everything, which is,
everything, which is the
balance
sources of revenue, all the state charges.
and all the
and everything,
warrants.
The warrant articles,
Okay.
the
So
individual budget.
you guys
You
get
get all that.
all of that. Okay. And ultimately, that's ultimately what is passed at the town meetings, the two town meetings,
Or modified.
or modified or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
now there's
Thank
another
you.
little trap, this green booklet. And it's on the very second section there, there's, this thing called budget recapitulation.
Right,
And I've read- These are required by the state. And they take and put together a lot of the departments that are included back in here. So you can't really tell anything.
okay, so some of that is in the warrants
Well,
rather than the operating budget.
well, this includes everything,
Okay.
but it also is not the way that any of it is presented to the town.
I got
For-
it,
for-
because I couldn't
No, you can't.
reconcile or okay.
Now,
Explain to-
what we work with is a sheet that breaks down each department,
Yes, so you get the
even in
detail.
greater detail.
Right,
And
that makes
so it
sense.
wasn't said when John was here. We look at 4 years of budget and 2 years of actuals when we're looking at each department.
You do, you look at all of that. Okay, that's a lot. So one more little question.
Sure.
This year was my first year going through I'm a trustee in the library, so I got to help put together.
Yeah.
I mean, the director, Jen, mostly did it, but, the trustees
Right.
get to look at it and the guidance that we got back in, I don't know, December, the guidance to a department on how to put together the budget was to give 3.5% on payroll and 3% overall. And I think everybody got the same guidance.
Right.
Pretty much, right?
Right.
So my question is, was there a way to have guided less spending? In other words, I expected guidance that said, cut 10% of your budget.
Well, part of it,
Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah,
In
but-
preparation for some of the expenditures,
Yeah.
the level of fixed costs that was coming.
let me tell you another thing about the budget guidance that most people in town wouldn't really know because one of the details is that, for example, on compensation, everybody was given the budget guidance of raising compensation by no more than 3%. In total budgets, no more than 3%. But there's a wage scale in Granby for employees. And that basically goes up
It's
3% a year through, well, no, there's steps in the wage scale.
Right, I saw it.
And so that, on top of whatever might be thought of as the COLA, the 3%, anybody who gets a step increase, which is anybody who's been here less than 12 years,
Sure.
or actually a lot less, because most people don't start at the bottom of the scale. They keep going up a step until they get to the
Automatic.
bottom of the scale. So that for a lot of departments, they have a 6% salary increase.
I guess what I'm asking is, would it have made sense, or maybe we had to spend all that money, would it have made any sense because of what we're anticipating as a substantial increase in fixed costs? Would it have made any sense to cut back on the level of operating expenses? Or maybe not?
Not as budget guidance, I'll tell you
Okay.
why.
It looked better to spend at a certain level and go
Yeah.
forward, right?
The schools were looking for an additional $700,000.
Right.
The police department, the fire department, the highway department, and public buildings department, I think are the only budgets that come anywhere close to that, and the only ones that are over that are the police department and the fire department. So everybody else has tiny budgets. So
Yes,
there's
that's true.
no way that you can get $700,000 by cutting little bits down.
No,
So
absolutely not.
so last year, what we said, so we're anticipating, last year, what we said is that this is not a simple budget exercise. That the select board has got to get together with whatever kind of group they want to together to discuss it and figure out exactly what we're going to provide in town and what we're not going to provide in town. You know,
The numbers are much bigger than what you would have achieved from cutting small budgets.
yeah.
I mean, the numbers of need going forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went through the budget cutting exercises in the past. And we've pretty much cut down all of the budgets, particularly except for the four big ones. We really cut them to the bone. So just by saying you have to cut the budget, we're already creating a change in the town.
Right.
And so in our position that we said publicly, is that is not the job of the finance committee. That's the job of the select board.
And you wouldn't have achieved enough to save, offset or contribute to the large amounts that have to be dealt with going forward. Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't know if there was, more involved in that. Okay, thank you. I
To your
don't-
specific question. I don't think I'm differing, but the guideline is set by the town administrator or the person preparing the budget. It isn't, to the best of my knowledge, finance committee isn't involved in that.
Right.
So consequently,
But
that
you would,
person has the ability to see everything and says, I think we can do this,
right,
and determines 3% or not, as the case would be. Obviously, if he said 2% or 1% or flat,
right.
uh,
I guess I
everything would
expected,
be a lot more
I
easy.
guess I expected a flat, but as you say, the library budget and other budgets like that, other operating budgets are so small that it wouldn't be. But you all have the big picture, so to speak, which.
Theoretically.
I
Yes,
understand.
we sort of.
Right, no, I understand. Thank you, I'm sorry, but I really appreciate that.
So again, I think the questions you're asking, I think are questions a lot of the viewing audience would ask if they had the opportunity, and felt comfortable.
It's very
to come in
helpful,
and
thank
ask.
you, I really appreciate it. You have a big job and it's all gonna get more complicated, I know, I understand.
Okay.
People keep asking me, what do you think? Do you have an answer? And these are not issues which you should pull out of your pocket. A simple answer, as you know. But this town has done, I mean, from what I'm reading, I'm surprised that some of the other towns are really cutting some serious services. And Granby has been able to avoid that this one time. So you've done great.
Well,
Work.
we can't take the credit for that because it all starts with the town administrator.
Sure,
And
but
the town administrator had an approach towards the finance of the town that enabled the select board and the finance committee to work to be able to keep the overall level of expenses and the basically services town provides from just.
but you all have the picture and you all contribute to the thinking of what the town is doing.
Yeah, I think.
Absolutely.
I think we do.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? We have two new members of the finance committee.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So we don't know what question to ask.
Yeah, that's half the problem.
That's the front,
Yeah.
understanding the process.
Yeah, you gotta know what to ask, and you have to know how to ask those questions too, is the other thing. We've had some fun, some past years on writing up the commentary that we make. I put out an initial draft that has some very wild kind of statements in it just to get people's attention, which we never include in the final, just to make sure that finance committee has something to discuss. And
Yeah.
bring it up to the point. By the time it gets there, it's all well filtered. Okay. Bob, we have minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we do the minutes first? So we had, was anybody able to get the original?
It was corrupted.
Yeah, I was corrupted too. I couldn't.
But thankfully, Bob.
Yeah, that worked out
was
fine.
an email. So
Yeah.
We could,
But think of
that, that email with everything, it was prepared before I tried the other thing. I said, maybe I can copy the whole file, which I did.
This was
But
thinking.
somehow in putting it into the
Yeah, it was.
email, it didn't.
No.
You put it in as a URL and it was not,
Well, I just did copy of
there was no web address, so that was,
Well, as long as you got it,
we got it. Got it in email.
and it covered what we discussed. So
So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll
A
motion.
motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion of them? Any changes suggested? Not then, all in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I sent around copies of the last 3 years of
Yep.
statements. And basically to give you a sense that a number of years ago, we hit upon basically this format, talking about much of the same things in the first couple of sections and an overview section, which gives some of the big picture coming from the state. And then the budget section, which talks about anything interesting in the specifics of about the budget for the year. And then finally, the considerations for the future, which is really the meat of what we have to think about. The rest of it can be put together, some variations by anybody who's got the figures. They're not all in one place, they have to be put together sometimes from a couple of different sources. But it's straightforward enough. The considerations for the future is, as has been mentioned, we started a few years ago saying we can see something's coming. Can't exactly see it yet, but we know it's on its way. And it's gotten closer and closer each year. The last year we made a stronger statement that we made with that. So I think this year we've got to tell people, what's gotten worse. Like, get us to the point where somebody in charge really has to be discussing this, and figuring out what we're going to do. Because you can't just come to town meeting and pass budgets that are big because we don't have the money anymore. We just don't have the money. So everybody's going to have to make some
One
choices.
comment I had, I've sat in town meetings and I read the bylaws for our responsibilities, and then sitting in and actually being part of the meetings is really where you learn. And what I'm gathering is, and I've sensed it also with what you're saying, we're heading towards a meeting where we're going to run out of money. But it doesn't seem that I've ever heard the finance council say, our revenue is here, our expenses are here. I disagree with comments about we're spending like a drunken, I don't see that anywhere in any of the budgets that we have looked at. Certainly not the schools. And the school is 2/3 of our budget. And you're very right about you can't take little bites out of things and think you're going to meet these major obligations. We had a 50% increase in our healthcare costs last year. That was totally unexpected. Now I'm coming from private industry, so in private industry, you can do a lot of different things that in a public agency you can't. So, and I just can't say, well, okay, we're not going to do healthcare anymore. You just can't do that. So, but we have no control over telling the town, I don't know if we have to raise revenue somehow. And you can't do it just by going to the well and saying, well, we need to increase everybody's taxes. That we can see how that works in South Hadley. And I've heard rumors of the meeting they had last week is all part of a strategy that's going down the road. And so I'm still trying to figure out this whole public entity thing. But Granby is short of money-making opportunities, and I don't see many activities that are trying to change that. Increased revenue stream, oftentimes through commercial development. Those people, they work here, they pay taxes here, and then they all go home. And that money can help pay schools, fire department, police, all this. But I don't see that so much unless it's
Let
happening.
me make a couple of comments about that. First of all, I agree that the finance committee has been very careful. We've never accused anybody of
No,
spending.
you can't.
That's not the finance committee that's doing that.
No.
And we see all the effort that's gone in to keeping budgets as low as they could be in the past. I'm really pleased with the way the departments go about running their departments. And this thing that they're running into is none of their fault. But as far as working with other businesses, in Granby and in any town in the Commonwealth, when a business moves into town, all you can do is get property taxes from them. If you have a way that you can have the town be in business with somebody, that's a different question, but that's not automatic. You can't tax them on their profits. None of that works. It's legal. You can only thing you can tax them on is the value of the property that they have. Now, when we had the landfill in Granby,
Don't dismiss that.
No,
Commercial
no,
real
no.
estate is more expensive than residential real estate. And Granby is basically residential.
yeah,
So,
but years ago, Granby, in fact, was in business with the landfall. Because we did not tax them just on the value of the landfill. We taxed them on the basis of what they were putting into it. So they collected a fee for everything into the landfill, and we got a little bit of that fee. So basically, we were in business. And when landfill finally closed the last couple of years, we were getting about $1 million a year in revenue from landfill. And all of a sudden, one year, we had to cut $1.5 million out of the budget. That was the big budget cut that basically put Granby on the kind of level of services that we have now. And $1.5 million had to come out. There was no more money. And so people have asked, what can we do to get businesses into Granby? Well, the first thing is that a lot of people, I think, do not understand that you cannot tax the businesses. You only tax the land and the property that they have. And the second thing is that what apparently people who have looked into this have been told is that in a town with no town water, no town sewer, it's always going to be extremely difficult to get businesses into town.
Well,
And that's
basically, you can't.
that's another way to
So
put it.
you can't. You've got to bring those services to the commercial properties. So otherwise, you don't have a commercial property.
And so there were a number of opportunities over the year and was actually looked at of things like bringing the sewer line, which goes into the South Bay, so bringing it down Route 202. So we still have 202, we have a chance to go. Like I said, that fell through. So that's been attempted. It's one of the first things people ask about, but it's very, very difficult to do for these reasons that were just given them. You can't tax the business, only the property, and it's hard to attract anything big when you don't have sewers and water. But and I'm sure that if the select board gets a group of people together to take a look at what's going to happen to Granby, that'll be discussed, and somebody will try to figure out what can we do with the limitations that we have? But everybody who's looked into this has said limitations are big. They're big and significant.
The only spot really for commercial development is from Finsfield to the South Hadley line on 202. Maybe just a little bit off to the sides. But
Well-
even at that, there's no water. I mean, that's where the sewer is, but there's no water.
And you gotta always remember, a sewer line, sewer system, if you will, municipal system, the line is cheap. The line is the cheap part of the system. It's the plant that's so expensive. And when those plants hit capacity, you can't extend lines any longer. So it doesn't matter. I've been in suburban areas where we want to put a medical office building up or something. There's a sewer that goes out in front of the building. But guess what? The municipal plant can't accept any more water. So that building already produces so much, you can't change that. Medical is a big user of water. So guess what? You can't put a use in there. So that's not the question I have. The question I have is, there's only certain ways the town can raise revenue. And as I say from my background, it is commercial or industrial. I've seen the proposed. What I'm getting at is this body, and I agree with the purpose of the body. You need somebody looking over the shoulder of all the people that are working, because we've all read stories where graft can go on. Somebody can rob your blind if you don't have anybody checking. It's a guardrail. But we also see, as you're saying, the free cash, if you will, is running out. There's less flexibility in our budgets, and with our projected cost increases that are built into the system, we're gonna come to a time where hard decisions have to be made, and this finance council really isn't the body to make those changes like this. So, and other than the general recommendations you've probably already made, that's about as far as it can go. Other than waving the flag that, hey guys, next year it's going to be even harder than this year. Am I making that?
Yeah.
Well, the state's priorities is for revenue for the towns comes nowhere near keeping up with inflation.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's chapter 70.
Yeah.
It's the UCGA, the cherry sheet numbers. It doesn't go, but when the state revenue goes up by 3.5% or 4%, and the towns get an additional 2%, somebody in Boston is determining where it's going to be spent. And I can tell you, it never comes out to be in rural suburban communities.
I know. Yeah. Well, we don't need to beleaguer this. I think this is a good goal
Yeah.
to
I
start
think
working
what
on.
Don said to begin with is sit in a nutshell. You either need to raise revenue through taxes, or you need to cut expenses. And in order to cut expenses, you got to cut services, or else you have to achieve some economies of scale by whatever means. If you can do any kind of combination with the neighboring towns, you can try that. But it's really basically pretty simple. Right.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, one of the other problem is the town meeting form of government.
Yeah.
This is just a theoretical, but there have been some meetings in the past where schools have asked for a lot of additional money, and there have been a lot of people in town who've shown up just to vote on school budget. If you reach a point where you vote increases over what's proposed in the budget, large increases, you're running the risk of authorizing expenditures of more money than you're going to collect.
Wow.
And if you do that, that only lasts until the end of the calendar year. If you don't have your tax rate set, when it shows the income and the outgo and have that match. If you don't have that set with what you can do in raising taxes by 2.5% a year, then the state won't approve your tax rates.
Hmm.
And if they don't approve your tax rate, basically things come to a halt. You can't spend any money. It's like the government.
I don't know about that.
Well, you can borrow it if somebody will loan it to you.
Yeah.
But you need cash.
Well, you can also ask the taxpayers in town if they'd like to make a contribution without a tax rate.
Yeah.
If you could do
But
it.
you don't go out of business. It's not just cut and dry. It's,
It's pretty close to it though.
well, I don't know, never been there.
Well, what you mentioned is like similar to what a condo association will do. They have a homeowners association that has a fixed monthly rate. But say, okay, we've got to do roofs now. So everybody has a specific charge for a specific amount of time. You don't touch the homeowner's rate, but there's an extra charge just to do the roof.
Well, I call that more like an override.
Well, you all have different names for it. That's true. But it happens in different, there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
So without a tax rate.
No, well, that's the cap. Yeah.
You can't have an
You gotta-
override, because you can't even send out a tax bill.
But this body doesn't look at the tax rate, does it? The tax rate is pretty much set.
No, well, the tax rate isn't set. What's set is the amount of taxes that you can raise. That's a big distinction. Some people have asked me about it, and I've explained it this way. All right. We raise a certain amount of taxes this year. The new master law, you can raise 2.5% more than that next year. Plus, if you have new growth coming in, you can throw in what you can get from new growth. That's the amount of taxes that you can raise. All right. The next step is spreading that among taxpayers. And it's spread among taxpayers by the valuation of the properties. All right. Suppose that because you're running out of money, nobody wants to buy your land anymore in Granby. And so the values drop by 50% in 1 year. All right. You can still raise the same amount of money that you had before. It's just that now you have to collect twice as much taxes from everybody as you did before. So tax rate goes up 100%.
Yeah.
So it has, no town meeting has anything to do with that. That's just a matter of what you're allowed to raise your taxes, how much in taxes you're allowed to raise, versus what's the value of how you collect them.
But
That's why our tax rate has dropped in the past few years, because the value of the properties has increased faster than the increase in the property taxes. Whenever that happens, then everybody says, great, the tax rate is going down. But everybody doesn't know what the tax rate is. Very few people know what the tax rate is. They know how much taxes they pay.
tax
The
bill.
taxes are going up.
Often when you buy property, many towns have, they'll change your tax rate when you buy the property because you often are buying over what the town set the value at. But then it creeps right.
Well, yeah, and Massachusetts tries to get around that by requiring a formal reevaluations every 6 years, I think.
Whatever.
And but also then a portion of the town has to be reevaluated every year. So there's always a reevaluation of some kind going on, a thorough reevaluation.
But any one
Anyway.
homeowner or property could see their taxes go up by, the dollar amount go up by more than what 2.5% would be.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's, what are the values in this neighborhood versus this neighborhood? So if this neighborhood appreciates and this one declines, total taxes are gonna be the same, but these people are gonna be paying more.
The assessed values.
Are we on your agenda as far as what we want to cover tonight?
I'd
I'd rather not
well-
be here till midnight. So
Yeah, well, I think we just
we do have a meeting tomorrow. Was
Yeah. Yeah.
Who writes this, John? You basically draft them.
I do the drafts.
And then we're around perfect.
So, John, you were talking about doing some bullet points, right? Or, some sort of,
Yeah,
what do we want to mention? And you've already mentioned a couple of things, right?
yeah, let me back up for just a minute. The overview, you can see what the figures are that we
Last year.
would somebody like to volunteer to put those figures together?
The what?
In the overview section,
This?
we're basically talking total state aid. And,
Yep.
The state aid for schools, higher or lower, the total amounts, different pieces of it. Some of it, volunteer.
Yeah, I can do that.
Did you
Yeah.
volunteer to look that up?
That's for 27?
Just
Yeah.
the overview.
It's the
section.
stuff that's in our
Yeah, this page right here.
for 7.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the next page, I
Budget.
think the budget guidelines were the same last year and this year, right? Yeah.
Item 3 says budget expenses other than compensation should be held to a maximum of 3%. Was that the same? Because I thought Rogers said they told 3.5 to the library.
I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
And I could have
Well,
included the step, movement.
I'll ask Chris or someone else about that one. The rest of these things, they're fairly straightforward, except you have to go through everything to pick out where the pieces are. Because the pieces are not all just in one spot. But,
I could do that. Maybe Jen could, I'll send it to you and you can,
Yeah, I'll look at it.
all right, so.
somebody want to take on the schools and somebody want to take on the town? Split that up.
I don't do anything with the schools when we don't, but
Excuse me?
I don't do anything with the schools when we don't know what their budget is.
Well, we do it in two contingent pieces. The total dollar amount is the same. It's whether or not that means that the money has got to stay in transportation, and they've got to cut their budget. Whether it means, they've worked it out, that's a detail, but the dollar amount's going to stay the same.
But they've identified ready,
Yeah.
solution of paying for it hasn't been figured out yet.
Well, yeah, and if they don't get the deal with South Hadley, then they're gonna have,
They're gonna be short.
they're gonna be short.
They'll find a way.
Mhm.
They'll find a way.
Okay, and then,
What does you want me to?
if you take on the school piece, I think you understand more about it.
I'm trying to find the school piece.
What's under the budget now?
So,
With the budget, okay.
budget, so-
And shot at the town piece then, John, which is
The general government, yeah,
general.
yeah, you can see what some of the things that you gotta watch out for in there.
Yeah, well, it's a blending of capital items, which are warranted.
Okay, and then considerations for the future, I'll put together a draft of that. And the question is, what do we want to include in there? I think we want to talk again about health insurance.
Definitely.
another increase in health insurance.
That's mine, but one of that, but that's what we see as relates to.
Well, what
Oh, the library,
flexibility are they offering on health
Right.
insurance, just as an example? It went up 50%. Does that mandate that the town look for a different provider? Or, I mean,
Well,
you can't keep absorbing a 50% increase.
the town is too small to have its own insurance. I mean, to go to a provider for insurance for just the town, it's much too small. No insurance company would deal with the town for any reasonable price. So the town has to decide whether or not it's gonna stay in the Hampshire Collaborative or health insurance, or whether it's gonna try to form or join a different group.
Join the state.
Yeah, and they've looked at a couple of things, and turned out to be more expensive. When the Hampshire Collaborative worked, it worked. So I think,
Did they offer any explanation as what caused the last year fiasco? I mean, did somebody make a mistake? Well, that
it's not.
No, it's not a mistake. It's all across.
must be a mistake.
They
You don't
had
have it.
used, no, they had built up a fund and they started, a few years ago, they started using it to keep their premiums lower. But in the fund, always thinking that things would catch up and they could replenish the fund, but the fund just kept going down. They got to the point where they couldn't do it anymore.
There were like 2 years in a row where there was no increase in the cost. So as a result of it being going up by 5 or 10 or 15%, some normal amount, it would not have been as large an increase as it turned out to be.
Also, the GLP drugs.
this
They
is sort
talked
of-
about that.
Yeah,
That-
This is
yeah.
sort of a perfect example of what we were talking about. But here's a group that could see what was coming.
Right.
Did anybody do anything about it? No, they waited until the very last minute and thought, okay, now we're gonna raise it.
But I think their financial analysis between Hampshire County and the state was it was like a short-sighted one, because they said there's a residual liability in the Hampshire County plan, which we'll have to pay whether we're in the plan or out of the plan. And in addition to that residual, we have to pay the state plan premium. But if it wasn't for the residual, it wouldn't necessarily have been more expensive. So that might be, in the longer term, the best thing is to switch. Do you know what I'm saying?
So there's it's a
What you're
multitude.
talking about there's something about claims submitted for a
Yeah.
period while we're covered. It's still our responsibility. We don't get rid of that when we get out.
Right.
Claims incurred, not paid.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's like a short-term
Yeah, so,
issue.
Yeah.
So it's still worth looking at again, probably.
Yeah, it's not just here that's seeing those insurance
Right.
spikes. It's everywhere. It's a combination of subsidies that were provided for health insurance. They're no longer, those have all expired. It's a whole bunch of things. And then the claims, an increase in claims, which will increase, especially when you're doing the group insurance. So if you have more insurance claims, our costs will increase.
But if you have a smaller, I mean, I know Hampshire County isn't small, but it's relatively small, right, compared to the state plan. So, the larger your group, in general, as long as you're not anti-selected against, right, the better off you're going to be. So,
Yeah.
Um, State aid and, state aid for general government and for schools is not keeping up with inflation.
back on the health insurance, 50% last year, but 23% this year.
There are two zingers, was 20 or 23, and then it came back also added 30 on top of it. So
Yeah.
that's where it combined was a 50% increase. And And nobody knew where it came from. At least
Yeah.
that's where my perspective.
On the budget sheets, health insurance is a separate budget.
Yes, it is.
So you can see what was budgeted.
That's what I just did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where I got the number from. I mean, it was done with my head doing the calculator.
Um,
How about the trash?
The what?
Yeah. You're supposed to roll in 10 years.
Working on it.
My favorite thing.
We ought to say something about Forge Pond, yeah. It was mentioned, in the select board meeting that Chris talked to the select board about Forge Pond. So theoretically, it is public knowledge. It always was, but.
Well, it's quasi-public knowledge already. I mean,
Yeah.
people know something's happening. They don't know what, but they know something.
Not only was it in the meeting, it was an article in the Hampshire Gazette.
Oh, there was?
And I think that article in Hampshire Gazette, I think, wasn't what old figures. We would have the current figures on that. I think they had a $3.1 million figure for replacing it, repairing and replacing it. But that had gone up to 3.3 million. And it's something that happened, what we were told fairly recently. And the cost to tear it down,
Well, Cost of
4.8,
tearing it
4.9,
down
there's different
higher.
figures there. Yes,
A lot longer,
4.8 to
so-
4.9, yeah.
One of the things the article said was that one of the reasons why tearing it down would cost more was because they did not do the ecological studies
well, it's a length.
for it being turned down. They only did it for what would be in repairing it.
Yeah. That's part of the cost and time sink that the state would mandate you do before you tear it down. So it's overall, it's a cost to tear it down. It's actually cheaper in theory to keep it. It'd be interesting, the budget we've been working with was 2.9. So to say Chris was increasing it or somebody was increasing it in the
I thought I'd seen a 3.3
3.3.
million figure someplace. From where that was. Did, you mentioned that, there was one scenario where, first of all, wells just be destroyed.
Well, we have a lot of shallow wells.
And, was that part of this, was that part of the environmental study, or is that a separate study that was done?
That was part of the analysis when there was a project analysis done to study what would happen if the dam was removed. Not the physical studies of, okay, we're going to remove the dam, and now what do you look at? That's a whole different scenario. This was done, if the dam was removed, what impact would it do on the town of Granby? And it basically had to do with homes in the area that have shallow wells. The fear is you would change the water table and some of these wells could wind up going dry. And with the cost of a new well, who's going to burden, these individual homeowners now can't use their well. They have to now have a deep well drilled because you can't. If you have an existing shallow well, you can keep it, but you can't have a new shallow well. It's got to be an artesian, a deep well. So, and they're $8,000 to $10,000, I think, all in all, by the time they're done. Today is the budget. So that was just one of the other features of maintaining the pond. Now, the physical pond is owned by Granby, Aldrich Lake, ironically. There's 2 lakes for Aldrich Lake, and one of them is owned by the people that live on the shore. Their property goes right across the lake. So It's very, very strange.
Not Aldrich Lake.
Yes, Aldrich
No,
Lake.
no, 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 no.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
No, 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 no. Because I sold it to the
Well,
state.
sorry.
The state owns it.
I'm talking about land rights right now, and the property goes right.
I'm talking about, I had a mortgage on it. Because when I was.
Well,
back in
it's
the
not
banking
the
business.
whole lake. There's two basins, and it's not the pond that has the dam on it.
Oh,
It's
I
the
mean,
upper
it's
pond
the upper part,
that has.
to the east.
But that's all part of
To the
Aldrich
east of
Lake.
Grammar Street.
Yes, yeah. That's all part of Aldrich Lake, though.
Yeah, because what I had the mortgage on was
The lower lake.
basically where the Boy Scout camp is.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. No. It was used by the Girl Scouts too, but I know.
I was lucky to have the state come along
Yeah, that's a
Get it
nice,
up.
that's a nice
Get it up.
dam. That's a nice
and
dam.
real estate owned.
That included a roadway too, didn't it? The bridge was repaired or replaced at that time as well.
I don't think so.
No street.
Well,
Anyway, that's off the subject, so. But yes, that was part of the project analysis, John, for the dam.
I think we want to talk about free cash.
Right.
That, how in past years, a lot of money, basically spent on special projects, capital equipment. And last year, let's say the current year, fiscal 25, fiscal year 26. We mentioned in the thing last year, that we spent out of the 2.5 million in free cash, we spent 1.9 on operating expenses last year for fiscal year 26. And the for next year, fiscal year 27, we increased projected income by $500,000. And this is the same thing as taking $500,000 out of free cash that we would have gotten next year. Or in other words, we didn't wait for free cash to come in and then spend that on operating expenses. We're pre-spending it on operating expenses.
I'm not sure you're right on the first figure.
That's what we had. That's what we had.
How much did you say?
9 is what we're spending next year.
In 27.
27. So the number a year ago should have been.
Well, all we said, here's what happened here's what happened.
What you said, you said it wrong a year ago.
Well, yeah, here's what happens just 1 year, and that year is fiscal year 26. This is what takes the balance of the budget. Free cash is about $2.5 million. Well, 1.9 million is allocated to operating expenses. That's right, to operating expenses. And so we've got 1.9 million allocated to operating expenses.
Like 600,000 left over.
So, and
You don't have last year's sheet, so.
yeah, that's
Can't
what
look. But I know that I had done a calculation, said that this year coming up, we're gonna be using 550,000 more than we used last year. And if it shows 1.9 million is what we're using next year, then the other number is gonna be 1,450,000 or thereabouts.
we wouldn't, last year, May of 25, we wouldn't have known what we were going to be spending in fiscal year 27.
That's correct. But what I'm saying is, at some point this year, I compared next year versus last year.
Fiscal year 27?
27, what will be needed for 27 as against what we expected would be needed in 26, and it was $550,000.
More, about 550 more.
550 more, yes. So the reduction of potential free cash would be $550,000.
But we have increased come from the local receipts section.
Well, we're saying free cash, right? Other revenue sources?
Say it again?
So we're talking about the revenue, free cash.
Talking about, basically it's in, one of the sections is on the notes that go along with the budget summary. Section 7 is local receipts.
That state aid. Local receipts is 9.
The local receipts for is $1,554,000.
Yeah.
And last year was 1 million, for fiscal year 26, I think it was 1,028,000. That's what it says.
So, 160. On the coverage. 1,554 projected.
Here, right? If this is 25 actual.
1,554 versus 1,060. Right, that's the. That's the 500, that's the 500,000. We have, we're projecting an increase of $500,000 in local receipts.
Yeah.
Would you say
So
1,554?
If we did not project, if we did not project
Okay.
the $500,000 in local
that.
receipts, but projected it more in line with what's been in the past, then that money would just flow to free
And
cash.
then 1,976,483.
That is
Would that money have just flowed to
25.
free cash?
Yeah.
The extra 500,000 that we're including in income
For next year.
for fiscal year 27. Yeah.
So 26, I
If
have
we,
Just
1,028,000. And then it's 1.9.
yeah, But that's basically taking away
25.
$500,000, which
Right.
would eventually come to us in free cash.
So it went down, and then it went up,
Don't argue that.
Well,
down by
that's
So
what
one.
we are saying.
Yeah, that's.
It's 25, 26, 27.
Careful.
What years I mentioned?
Oh,
Pardon?
What years I
Oh,
mentioned?
no, wait.
Yeah, because you were saying that free cash a year ago was 2,300,000.
Did you
And
craft
you
that
used your
yourself?
$1,900,000.
No,
I don't think that's
This
right.
was, but you know what? This says 25.
Okay, I'll check. Right. I'll check.
That's easy to.
Yeah, because it says the 26 recap, it says 1.0.
Yeah, but the column E it says 25 actual, which is 1.9.
9, right.
So,
But that's 25 fiscal year, right?
well,
And that was one of the mechanisms that was used to make sure we had free cash coming in the following year. Is that you would basically use a kind of an average over 3 years in the past approach to putting down what the income was going to be. It's a conservative estimate. But if you don't do a conservative estimate and you basically put in there what everything you think you're going to get, then first of all, you're going to have very little of any free cash the following year. Second thing, you run a risk of not actually collecting that. In which case, then you automatically have a deficit that has to get paid back, that gets taken by the state in the funds you have. Rather than charging.
I see what you're
Careful
saying.
when you talk about
Yeah.
reducing free cash for next year. Because remember when we talked with Chris, the assessing department, or no, excuse me, the tax collector did a transfer on the last day of the fiscal year, which didn't show up on the, as a deposit until the first day
Yeah.
of this fiscal year, and that was about 500,000.
Yeah,
So it may very well be,
it may offset
they
each other.
may offset each other. On the other hand, it may get transferred on June 30th this coming year, and it's gets reported in the following fiscal year too, so.
so 160, 1,060,000, and then 1.5, 40.
For estimate.
Yeah, but I look at this 160. And then 27, and it's 1554. So that's the
When
100,000.
you go into these details, I'm gonna,
Oh, yes, yeah.
follow you, but thank you very much.
Just to tell you that you're lucky in one sense that you picked tonight. The first meeting that we had, we went 5.5 hours.
Did you really?
5 hours and 15 minutes, yeah. Went from 6:30 till 4:12.
You're gonna meet again tomorrow, right?
No,
Maybe.
maybe.
I mean, I don't plan to be there, but I just thought I
We
saw
have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. We may not use it. We
You
may,
don't have to go. You
Don't-
may get everything done.
yeah,
Okay.
Or not get enough done to have a meeting.
yeah. I mean, we'll have a meeting next week.
Oh, I see.
And we'll schedule them sometime to finish things up, yeah. But it might not be tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Very
Thank you for coming.
It's complicated.
It is.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, I could track through figures on that and get a sense of what it is.
I'm gonna bring up what I think we should talk about too. Which you know.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, other things similar to what we talked about? You know, the things that are next are just more of the same. We just sort of repeatedly or ask the select board to put together an appropriate group
So,
to study this and
Yeah.
make changes while we still
so
can do it without running into a financial cliff.
if we're given time, because I know this just came back out, because I would like to think about, just now that I've been here a little bit longer and I'm watching like the community and the interactions and the lack of interaction. This isn't just a select board problem, a finance problem, a department problem.
Right,
This is our actual community.
right.
And our expectation when we move here is we like certain things. We like certain things about this community. We have farms, it's mostly a bedroom community where everybody works outside of Granby and then comes home. These are aspects that we enjoy and like about it. In order to have these, our police department, fire department, it's our expectation is that they would help us. They also require payment. I get a salary. They get a salary. Their expectation is that they have the required tools to be able to go out into the community and help us.
Do their job.
Right. So I think this is a community problem. It should be up to the select board to help determine how we're going to address these problems. I mean, we can make recommendations, but they have to act on them. The community has to act on them. So we select and elect people to be in positions to help us. Their thought process should be, what is our future? What does it look like?
Yeah, and we do not want to make any recommendations as to what the solution is. We just want to make recommendations that
No,
somebody,
that's up to them to
somebody
make
do
that
something.
recommendation.
We'll participate where we can.
Right. But it's not up to us to do that. It's a community problem. And I think that should be addressed, not by us, because we can tell them. We didn't get here in one day. It took many years to get here.
And the closing of the landfill, that was a big deal.
Well, that
Tax
also
burdens,
is
you know.
in government, it's like you get a grant. You shouldn't rely on that every year. So that's a one-time opportunity. It's when you apply for that grant, how do you maintain whatever it is you're doing? You have to come up with a plan to maintain. How much does it cost? Do we have the money in the future, or how are we going to get it to maintain that? That's
That's really what it says in here from last year.
Mhm.
You know, it requires an agreement on the fundamental nature of the town. It's not a simple financial exercise. It's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
But
It's-
I mean, there's so many factions in town. You have
I
the
think people need
that
to
have
learn
been
to
here a
work
really
together.
long time that are, and also very kind of stretched financially, right? You know,
Mhm.
and you have the farmers that have been having to sell off their land to keep going, and and you have other people that have been here a really long time, and then you have a lot of incomers who have a different perspective on things, just like you were saying, and to get all of those, to get agreement in the town meeting. So, that is another factor that that I think that it is hard to understand the finances, and therefore, if it comes to a vote in town meeting, people are looking at it through their own particular lens, which does not necessarily include, a full understanding of the
Right.
severity of the problem, right? So I don't know how you.
And this may take both sort of a re-understanding of what services the town is going to provide, plus an override for some of them. You know, some are either in or out, depending upon an override. Here's the basic ones that everybody agrees on. But so the thing is, the amount of money that's available to us has got to drive this, because you don't have a choice.
No, they're limited.
So is there and I think maybe this was what Roe was trying to get at, is there some simpler way that we should, that we could do something here? Could we put in a pie chart, or is there anything that we could do that would make it more easier for people to understand?
I don't see how, because as I'm learning more about this, there's too many moving parts, Mary Ann. I mean, I think what is shown in the book, the Green Book, is probably the best way that shows everything that the town has for coming in, as well as expenses going down. I think I grew up in this town, so when you start talking about services, you make it sound like people are getting special deals. Services are police.
Mhm.
I grew up in the town that we had a volunteer fire department. They were lucky to come and save the houses around the barn that was burning down, because they weren't going to catch the barn, So at least now we have an active fire department. But
To the tune of,
what's that?
to the tune of probably $600,000 or $800,000.
Well, what I'm getting at is there's costs associated with police, with fire, EMTs. I mean, all of these services, I think people today expect them.
Mm-hmm.
And you really, revenue has to meet the expenses. And everything we started this conversation about is it's not the responsibility of the finance council to determine how to raise money. The finance council is really a guardrail to make sure nobody's pilfering money. The budgets are what they say they are, and they're real. Correct? Is that so how do we raise money? That it goes back to the select board, I suppose. The planning board typically has a lot to say about this. They should, anyway, because the planning board in most communities, they're the ones driving the development sense of the town through their zoning maps and all that other good stuff. So, but, well, I don't necessarily like the tone of what we said last year. I have to agree with it.
It's not inaccurate.
It's not inaccurate. That's the truth. I don't like the story, but I have to agree with the story.
Yeah, I'm tempted to make these last couple sections just very, very short.
It's probably better.
Don't put all these things in there. 3 or 4 points, and the conclusion is we really run out of time. We really run out of time.
And this isn't a one-person problem. It's a community problem.
It's a community. True.
Yeah.
But
They're different.
as you said, and as I think Mary Ann, you said it correctly, that everybody comes to the town meeting with their own filter on it.
Mhm.
And they know what they need. If they've got kids, they want a good school system. If you're retired and you don't have kids, I don't care about the school system any longer. And everybody votes accordingly. So
But that's that's not a community, that's an individual. That thought process.
Well, I guess what you're talking about is how do we
Get
get that
everybody-
conversation
yeah.
going about how do we make Granby a better place to live
Yeah,
and why people are moving here.
because it's,
I mean, Munsing Ridge is coming down the road with 72 new home sites. It's going to be developed over 3 phases, but there's 72 homes up on that hill. And one of the points here, building many new expensive homes. Well, even small homes in Granby are expensive when you build them brand new. It's shocking how expensive they are. So, but that's what I'm saying. I think you have everything you need right here, but how do you present it is so important.
Okay. We don't really have to have this till after the first town meeting, I think, or about the time of the first town meeting.
the first town meeting is what day?
11.
The 11th, okay, I thought so.
I still got 2 things to, I got 2 things.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One is the regionalization of schools. We attended a meeting with the ESE people back when in the fall sometime,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they suggested that the proper way to go about regionalization is to hire someone to do the legwork for you. And there's nothing on the annual town warrant that deals with that particular issue. So I think it bears some sort of mention that even though we're getting close to having a committee, that the finance committee would support the funding of a consultant.
What's our purpose?
Pardon?
What's our purpose for it? The,
To see
the-
whether there's a possibility of regionalization.
It's supposedly, from my takeaway, we're supposed to save money,
Mm-mm.
but it doesn't from what,
it costs
Maybe
more.
we're very well not, but I think my point is that we're gonna be faced with an issue of repairing the high school. If we don't regionalize, and the time frame on regionalization was way off.
Yeah, it's a
It's something that
process.
We need to undertake at the moment, and the way the state said to do it was to hire someone to do the legwork.
that was my takeaway also. You have to
And
look-
there's nothing. on the
There's no appropriation.
Which state department was that?
ESC,
Desi,
Desi, yeah, that was the meeting you were someplace else on.
yeah, we had it with the select board.
It was online if you wanna go back.
Yeah,
So,
So
yeah.
didn't
Marion, you?
somebody,
she was
I was
attending
there.
via
Didn't
Zoom.
somebody say that I was there in person
Yeah.
once before I left, I think, but didn't they say that our schools are looking into it? Somebody said.
So what happened,
Somebody-
No,
Oh.
I was accosted in this parking lot.
no, when I was on it, we actually did look into it.
Oh,
We asked the surrounding communities about regionalization.
Is that
That was a long time ago, right?
And then we-
Finance committee brought the issue up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was like, I forget how many years ago, but we went to Amherst. I think they went to Amherst. And then there was letters sent out to the surrounding school districts. And there was no interest, except for there was an interest in doing services, combined services with different schools, with the different districts. But nobody was interested in doing
typically everybody has their
regionalization.
facilities
I don't
already.
think the schools are the right people to ask.
Yeah.
I think you gotta ask the select boards, not the schools.
And when the letter that was sent out said that we've been asked by the finance committee to investigate it, which implies to everybody that there's no real interest on the part of the school committee. And as such,
That was my take.
it would be a waste of time because it's a long process that involves
It's-
everybody agreeing to something.
And things
So
are
in other words,
different.
it wasn't a fair assessment of the likelihood. May very well have been the right answer.
And things are different now because the other towns are having big problems just like we are.
Yeah. And
You got a big.
I can't be 100%, but when it was presented to Amherst, they said in order for them to engage in it, we had to have potential people that were interested in regionalizing with us. Because otherwise, they said you're wasting your money. Because if you don't have any interested parties,
Small, I guess.
yeah. So if you don't have interested parties, they recommended seeing if anyone was interested before taking on the cost of evaluating.
So in your mind, has that issue already run up the flagpole and
So, and I know they want to do it again. I don't know what happened with the committee, but there was supposed to be a committee to look into regionalization. And I don't know what happened to it.
I don't think anything, Bob, since that meeting we had,
Right.
nothing has moved forward, I don't think.
Yeah, I believe I heard, I don't know whether you told me or Chris told us, that the selectmen were getting ready to form a committee.
That's what I thought. That was going to happen.
Yeah, like getting ready to and
Doing.
is.
But I know that's mostly everything.
Yes.
That's what I these are out there, okay, we'll get to
Taking 6 months to get to the point of saying, well, maybe we ought to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
it's
it's
not
too
doing
late.
something.
I know.
The other issue I have is, I think somehow we gotta lightly tread on the issue that Chris Martin brought up to the Board of Selectmen, the failings in the paper flow or whatever you want to call it, the accounting board. It's was documented on GCAM. It's been in the newspaper.
What subject is this again?
The
Reports not being filed on time, not being
Oh.
up to date.
Oh,
You know.
yeah. I
and
watched
social
that.
media is talking about it. So I mean, it's not like it's not known.
What is on social media even?
Oh yeah, I mean that's very.
I don't watch that part of it, so
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't know how widespread
it's not a major issue on social media, but it is.
it's out there.
It's out there, and
Yeah.
there was no money placed in the budget.
Right.
Well, I come up this way. There's two possibilities. Either it's a complete person problem, not capable of doing the job, or not enough hours to do the job in. And
Are we looking at a potential lawsuit? Is that what you're talking about?
no, I'm just saying that we don't know what is causing the failure
That we have.
that we have. And I hate to think of what will happen come the end of the fiscal year if it isn't solved
Right.
relatively quickly or being worked on or a solution formulated, something. I mean, just as an example, our job is made a little bit more difficult by the failings. We can't get the true balance of stabilization funds. We don't know whether accounts are being overdrawn on the payroll side. We can't figure out how much health insurance costs are for
No.
this year. Just as an example, I don't know what would happen if comes the end of the year and the books haven't closed and the 14 days or 15 days that we can transfer from the reserve fund have passed, then all of a sudden we find out that some departments are short money. I don't know how you solve that problem. I mean, I'm sure there's a way, but probably is you've got to add it to your tax rate for the following year. But, it seems like there's a volume enough of work that hasn't been done that there's no real likelihood, or let's say it would be very difficult to get it all done and caught up
Without,
next December
without extra resource.
without something.
Yeah,
More hours. I mean,
yeah,
Krista said he's not coming back.
right.
I don't blame you.
So I think that that what needs is it, selectmen people have to be aware that we're concerned about it. And that we think that it's very important that it gets solved immediately.
So that reflects back because when I watched that meeting, there's a definite communication problem. In
Which meeting now?
the one that Chris was talking about this issue. So it's a definite communication problem and it's not within the departments. So all the departments that rely on the town administrator's department, it seems like there was a lack of communication in there. And that team, and again, I come back to community. It's that team effort of getting things done and accomplishing things. And I think by the sound of it, when I listened to that meeting, that was lost. So that was no longer in that department, which that department needs that because they are the revolving door for everybody.
They are.
And if that department doesn't have it, then everyone else is left to, what do I do?
I think there's an actual work issue too, though, like you were saying in the last.
It is a work
meeting,
issue,
right?
but and again, it comes to communication. If this person doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing or how they're supposed to be doing it, then all of these people don't get the correct information. They cannot do their jobs effectively. Whoever's in charge of it cannot effectively do their job to make sure that they're within what they said they were going to do.
Right, right.
So any status report on where they are in filling this role? I know it's a work in
I don't-
progress.
There's no
I mean,
money.
it would seem like the very first thing that ought to be done is somebody to determine how come things haven't been done. I mean,
Already.
what is the cause of it? Is it more training needed, more hours needed?
We know nothing about the cause. What we hear is the results that are either not being gotten or be gotten incorrectly.
Mhm.
That's what we hear. We don't know why, but it's
Or
not our job to figure out
when
why.
we sit and
It's
look at the
somebody's
number
job to figure out why, correct it.
and they're all zeros, like what's the
Well,
balance?
somebody's select board minimum, isn't it? Or I would think.
Well,
We don't have a mayor.
it should be the town administrator, though, which we don't have.
But we don't
Right.
have them. That's why it's a select board.
There is an interim.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
right.
as you correctly pointed out, I'm only gonna do this. And I don't blame him.
You know,
No, the town administrator, I mean, the system, we said the town administrator is not even in charge of all the financial people in town.
yeah.
So,
Because of their own position.
there's independent financial.
Yeah, but I'm
To some
not at all concerned about some of that.
You're not.
No, I mean, and when you mention about talking to them, yeah, that's important and there's no question, but there should be a team.
Mhm.
But, well, the problem that I'm addressing is the fact that nobody's taking care of the books
Right.
of the town.
And that's
Right.
that issue's
And-
starting.
Yes, when the tax collector sends something to the treasurer on the last day of the fiscal year and it isn't recorded, yes,
That's
that's
a problem.
That's
a
the problem.
problem. But
Who's
that-
doing the bookkeeping? That's where,
Mountain.
but that's the main issue. Who's doing the bookkeeping? Because that person receives all that information.
after the fact,
But they're the ones who are entering it in to get this, right? We have one person entering in the
Talking
book.
about the tax collecting issue.
Yep.
That's just purely a matter of timing.
Yes.
I mean, if it had been done one day earlier, it would have been in the fiscal year. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wouldn't have been a
that-
problem. So that, yeah, somebody, I won't say even screwed up. They just did something and weren't aware of the repercussions of it. Now that I would assume now they know. Maybe they don't.
I was thinking that maybe even, any like sort of generally competent person who's not an accountant could go in as an assistant, and if whatever kind of grunt work needs to be done, like get out the payroll, do this, do that, under direction of that 20-hour accountant, that person could make a big difference just by taking some of the burden off the accountant to do the true accounting. Does that make sense?
What concerns me is the timing of it.
I mean, right away.
And we've been
It's,
aware of the
It does.
problem since
but it
December.
still needs.
That-
And it's now
Yeah.
the middle of April.
That's
So we've
valid.
gone 4 months.
That's bad.
And
Yeah.
to the best of our knowledge, everything is still the same.
And we know money's coming in, we know money's going out, and who's tallying it, who's watching it.
Well, the treasurer watches it, makes sure it isn't stolen,
Well,
but nobody knows
it's not written
what
down.
revenue they have.
I know.
Yeah, because it's not in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Should I set a couple meetings? Oh, you want to talk about?
No, I was just talk about when we want to meet again.
Yeah.
And
How
I
about
want to
next?
talk to Kathy about getting some meetings set up, I guess, for next week.
Yeah,
I was thinking.
try for next Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay.
Let's check my-
Let's, right now there's 2 days,
Okay. That's warning.
it's getting close.
What's that? I can do both days, so.
Tuesday, okay, I'll have
I
meetings set.
can't do Thursday, but I can do both.
Tuesday the
Tues-
28th.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Sorry, on next Tuesday, the 28th, which is a West Street
Oh, yeah.
building groundbreaking at 10 o'clock in the morning. I think we're all invited. I think everybody's invited.
Yeah.
To that, so if you're-
Can't wait.
yeah.
I feel like
Go
Wait a minute,
But
what
It's
day?
it's a ceremonial.
Tuesday, the 28th.
Okay.
And they might put a pile of dirt out and
Yeah, it's a ceremonial groundbreaking for, so even there's gonna be a,
Yeah,
speech. I don't know.
little reception sort of thing with
Oh, Sandra too.
alright, so,
something that's supposed to go on for, I think, 2 hours total.
wow,
2 hours.
big long.
We don't just stay for the whole.
Maybe some munchies, something.
Well, it'd be nice to go in the building though. I haven't been in that building.
Yeah. So
Last time I voted.
so we would meet in the evening though, the April 20th.
Yeah, I'll set the 6:30 time.
Yeah.
Good. for
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
Okay. And you're saying set aside Wednesday as well, or?
I'll put meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay.
Are you using GPS, guest as a network?
no,
No?
I have, my data,
Data.
yeah,
And what?
Data. I'm not signed into the Wi-Fi here. I don't have a password.
I don't know. Do they have Xfinity here? Because I'm.
Yeah, you
I'm
gotta,
connected
even the
to-
guest has to have a password.
Oh, really? Oh.
So,
So I guess you gotta be an invited guest.
You're right.
Xfinity, if you
No,
have,
Xfinity is not here.
No.
they have one in South Hadley, so if you're outside and you can connect to the
Well, I
Xfinity.
have data. That's what I'm.
Yeah, that's what I'm using, data.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, thank you all very much. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? See you all next Tuesday.
Yep. With new numbers and,
Yeah.
Draft of the.
If you get anything, but no, just,
yeah, I'll send it.
well, I'll have Kathy send you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.